Hello, everybody. I am here to show you how to get started doing homework 1 for PSQF 6242. So here is our course website. Step number 1 is to connect your VPN. So I just discovered a brand new way to do this that's more efficient. I have the program saved here. We're going to hit connect. My Iowa ID is saved. I'm going to hopefully enter my password correctly. And then where it says second password, in earlier videos, I had typed SMS to get a text message sent to my phone that had numeric codes that you could then enter. I recently learned that you can also type the word push, P-U-S-H, hit OK, and it will ping your two-factor authentication that you would have installed on your phone, and you can approve it directly, as I just did, and there we go. Once you have the VPN connected, you may need to reconnect your H drive or it may still be there. So mine happens to still be there, which is a good thing. So I'm going to be using that for this example. On my H drive, I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it homework 1, and that's where the files are going to go for this demonstration. So I'm going to link to the University of Iowa web desktop here, virtual desktop, hit continue. It remembers me because I've been here before. And here are the programs. So I'm going to go ahead and open up SAS to demonstrate how to use that today. It will probably take a moment. That's all right. While we're doing that, we can go ahead and go back to the course website and get ready with the actual materials for the homework. There we go. SAS is up and running. Lovely. Now we're going to go link to the homework portal. You're going to use your last name and 8-digit ID to log in. I'm going to use a dummy login that I use for demonstration purposes. Last name 1. All right, so thank you, Chrome. Homework 0 we have demonstrated before. We are ready to start homework 1. So when you log in, you should be able to click on this box here to take you to your first homework. First step, you need to download the files that you need to do this homework assignment. So one of those is going to be a data set. So I'm going to click on this link that says download my individual data. It pops up a window asking me where I'd like to save it. I'm going to go to my H drive and save it in the folder that I'd called homework 01, not change the name, and hit save. There's also a link to starter syntax. So I'm going to click on the link for SAS. What you would do with this information is copy it. So I'm going to hit Control All to select all. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go over to SAS, and in an empty editor window, paste it in. So this syntax right here is designed to help you import your homework dataset, label the relevant variables, and give you a starting point for then generating your results. So first thing I'm going to do once I have this is save this file. I'm going to put it along with the homework in my H drive. So let me navigate to that inside homework 1, and I'm going to call this homework 01 syntax. Okay, now what do I do here? I need to tell SAS where my data set is being stored. So rather than using the location that's inside my Dropbox, I'm going to tell it where my data are stored currently. The easiest way to do that is to go inside the virtual desktop and open up Windows Explorer. It'll take a minute and create yet another window here. There we go. And then I'm going to navigate to the H drive, to that folder. So there's my H drive, homework 01. There's the data set that I need to import. There's the syntax that I just saved. I'm going to put my cursor up in the address bar, hit copy, and then replace the address here after the equal sign, but before the semicolon with that new address. Next step, you need to change this number right here to be your 8-digit ID number. So this one works for my dummy account, but it will not work for yours. So please change this number that's highlighted to your 8-digit ID number. Once you've done those two steps, you've changed the path to where FileSave is pointing to the folder that holds your homework data, and you've changed this number in here, underscore, and then the 8 digits that names your homework data set. You can see if it works. We're going to highlight lines 1 through 12, hit the running man very carefully, check the log to make sure that the data imported correctly. It says that it did. If you'd like to see what the data set looks like, we can go over to the libraries within the Explorer tab. Double click on that. Our data set is located in the Work library. Double click on that and double click on the data to open it. And here are the variables that Homework 1 is going to be using. There is a person ID variable. There are two variables to denote first generation college student status and gender ID. There's age, undergraduate GPA, and a rating of job importance. So as we mentioned in the earlier video, you cannot have your data set open when you do things to it, so we want to close it. Given that there's a bunch of tiny little X's that you'd have to navigate to exactly right to avoid hitting the wrong closure of windows, I'm going to go down here to where the table is open, right click on it, and then hit close from there. Okay, the next step then is to simply execute the code that I have written for you that applies the labeling information to the variables in this homework data set. So I have two value formats defined here. These are labeling systems that will provide a label for each value of a categorical variable. So I will run that much, lines 14 through 18. Check the log. Everything is black and blue. That's good. Then I'm going to take that labeling information and apply it to my data set. So I'm going to take the variable that is called firstgen and apply the labeling information from above, the format known as fgen. Do the same thing for gender ID, apply the format for fgender. And then for the other variables, I'm also going to add labels for those so that you can see exactly what they mean. So you don't need to change anything in here. All we need to do is just execute this data step that applies the labeling information. So we'll go hit lines 20 through 30, hit run, check the log to make sure that it worked. We can also double click on the data to see the labels and the variable labels being, value labels and variable labels being applied. All good. Close. Okay. So it says here on line 31, now homework 1 data is ready to use. The rest of this file includes the starter portion of code that will send your results section to an external file, as well as the ending portion. We don't need this until we're all the way done and we have results that we'd like to save. So on line 38, you'll see a comment here that says your code goes here. So this is the part now that you need to do. I'm going to save my work thus far before continuing. Now what goes here is going to be determined by which homework assignment that you're working on. The homework numbers correspond to the lecture and example numbers. So since I'm demoing homework 1, I'm going to need the corresponding example 1 syntax file. So you can open that directly to save yourself some typing, or you can refer to the handout that has the code. It's actually in lecture 1 in this case. In future homeworks and examples, there'll be a separate document. But I have example 1 already downloaded to my directory here. So I'm going to go find that. That was downloaded into a different folder. So I'm going to open that here. So note now that I have two different syntax files open. I have the example 1 that we went over previously in an earlier video. Note that it has some of the same features. It has a file save definition. It has an import statement to bring in the data. It has value formats, and it has variable labels. So all of this initial part here, first define, file save, and so forth, this is specific to example 1. You don't need that. I have given you the appropriate version for the data set you'll be working with in homework 1 already. So the part that we need to pay attention to is the commands to actually generate output. That's what I want you to refer to successfully complete homework 1. So I'm going to go ahead and copy, for instance, these 3 commands to start with. Copy all of it, and I'm going to paste it into my homework 1 folder under Your Code Goes Here. All right. Now what will happen if I try to run this directly without doing anything else? Let me show you what will happen. I'm going to hit run. It will blink briefly. No output will be generated, but if I go to the log, you will see that it is unhappy with me. Red text means it's unhappy. It tells me work.example1.data does not exist and no dataset open to look up variables. So the reason it is unhappy is because the code that I just copied and executed refers to a different dataset. It refers to the dataset that we used for example 1, whereas I need to refer to the dataset that we need for homework 1. So before I can use this code, I'm going to have to change the reference to each of the datasets. So rather than example 1, my dataset is going to be called homework 1. So HW01, I'm going to copy. You can double click on the word and it will select just that so that you can change it. So I'm going to paste homework 1 here. I'm going to paste it here as another reference to which dataset I'm referring to, as well as here. Okay, so now we're pointing to the right dataset. We also need to point to the right variables within the dataset. And to know what variables are going to be relevant, I have to know what question I'm answering. So let's go back to the homework itself and look at the questions. So the instructions will tell you in generic terms what you need to be doing. Note that it gives you the precision level that you need to enter your answers to, so to the nearest 100th place, 2 digits after the decimal. The first question is enter the total number of graduate students who completed this survey. So the background for this homework is that we have a survey of graduate students and we want to write a method section that describes this sample. So the number of graduate students is the first question. The next few questions refer to the number and proportion of these students who identify as being first generation. Well, I can tell you that the total number of graduate students is going to be reported in anything that I ask for. So I'm going to skip that for right now and just focus on being able to answer these questions. The number and proportion of first generation students. To be able to answer that question, I have to determine what the column is named that holds that information. So this is where referring to the labels that I gave you is going to help you out. The name of the columns is going to be provided after the word label, but before the equal sign. So I have a column called person ID. I have a column called first gen, and this is the one that I need to be able to answer that question. It is a categorical variable that has 2 possible categories for whether or not a student identifies as first generation. And the possible values are actually given up here. So I'm going to take that variable name, first gen, copy it. Because I know that I'm asking for frequencies and proportions, I know that that goes with ProcFreq. So rather than asking for frequencies and proportions for marital status, which is what it was in example 1, I'm going to paste in the name of my variable, which is first gen. It goes here for sure on the table option, which is where you list which variables you'd like to summarize. But it also should go here in the title so that I know what I'm looking at. So I'm going to paste it in both places. I'm going to save the file before I move on. And let's see if it worked. So I'm going to highlight lines 42 through 45, hit run. It's thinking about it. And here's my results. So I have both a table and a plot. We don't need the plot for the homework, but we do need the table. So now I know how many people have identified as not first gen or is first gen. The frequency gives the count. So I know that the number is 66. The number of students who identify as first gen, I'm going to put that answer in here, hit enter, and watch it turn green. Ta-da! Within this same table, it also tells you the cumulative frequency, which is 207. So that gives me the answer to the first question. 207 is the total number of students in the survey, and there it is. So you would go through and answer each of these questions using your output. How to generate the output is based on you figuring out how to modify each of these examples to fit with your current data set. So changing the name to refer to homework 1 rather than example 1 in this case, and also changing the variables that you want the information for. So procfreq is used for categorical variables where you want to know the count and percentage of each possible value. Procmeans and procunivariate are used for quantitative variables to get descriptive information such as the mean, standard deviation, the range, and so forth. So this is the point I will let you try it on your own. So this much should get you through section 1. You will then answer questions and note that once you have entered values up here for the answers in the computational part, they will be embedded in this results section. So the 207 shows up here because I have provided that answer. So in bold font are all of the answers that will be populated from above. Even if they're incorrect, they will be populated down here, so they will correspond no matter what. And then you can choose the right answer that completes the question. There's also a couple of multiple choice questions here. For section 2, we're going to be doing some hypothesis tests regarding means of a sample variable relative to a population mean. In example 1, so navigating back to this original file here, we have examples of testing means for quantitative variables as well as for binary variables. In this homework, I only am asking you to test the means of quantitative variables, which is done in SAS via proc-t-test. So I'm going to copy this template to start from, paste it into my syntax file, and note that you will need to change the name of the data set, the null hypothesis, and the name of the variable to be able to execute this code. So in addition to the titles and comments that are part of the example, it can be helpful if you annotate this code yourself. So for instance, under your code goes here, I might write that this procfreq involving first gen is going to give me the answers to, it looks like, questions 1 through 3. So I might say star to start the question 1 to 3 here, for instance. And then for the next one, the next set of questions, for instance, is about gender identity. So that's questions 4 through 10, for instance. Questions 4 through 10 here, and then I would have whatever procedures go with that. So the more clues you can leave yourself, when you return to this to know what you're looking at, the better off you'll be. Once you are all the way done, so I'm going to comment out these pieces that we haven't changed yet, just to show you what this is going to look like. Actually, we haven't done this one either. So slash in front of the star comments a whole chunk of code at the same time, and then to close it is star slash. So I'm just temporarily shutting this off so that it doesn't execute in the system, because these examples we haven't changed yet. They still refer to example 1. What I wanted to demonstrate is what this code here is going to do for you. So let's say that you've finished your work, you want to save your results and fill in the answers later, or you just want to make sure that you have a copy of the answers. That's fine. If you run the code that starts from line 34 here, this ODS RTF statement, that stands for Output Delivery System Rich Text File Format. Start there, highlight all of the code that goes through this RDF close, and run that. What you will get is all of the output will go to a RTF style document that should open up automatically. So this is the output that we generated earlier, and simultaneously it should also be saved inside the same directory that file save refers to. So here's my output file. So you don't need to worry about saving things yourself. You can use this system to generate one document that contains all of your results after the fact if you wish, but this is not strictly necessary. The only thing that is essential for you to save is this homework 1 syntax file that contains your work. So the start of it is available inside the homework portal, the starter syntax. Once you have started working with it, you've customized it to include your location for file save, your 8-digit ID, and you started adding proc freq and proc means and so forth to answer the questions. This is what you need to save. And you don't have to do anything special to save, just Control S or the save icon just like normal. So long as you have this syntax file and the original Excel dataset, that's all you need to save. I would highly recommend keeping the syntax file. That way you have it to use as an example when you want to do these sorts of analyses in future homeworks or hopefully in the rest of your future research career. So that's it. Make sure that if you want to come back to your homework before it's finished, that you scroll to the bottom and hit check and save your answers, and that way they will be retained for you in between sessions. And once you get all the way done, when you hit submit final answers, there is one more screen in which you have to enter your 8-digit Iowa ID one more time, just to ensure that we don't submit by accident. So make sure you don't forget that last step. If you have any questions about how to answer these questions, please let me know. If you get stuck on any of these computational answers and you cannot get it to turn green, please send me an email and explain to me what you think the answer is, and I can try to help you troubleshoot either your thinking or your code, whatever it takes. All right, I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that you have fun working on homework. Thank you for watching.